Ho, ho, ho. Santa here. The true spirit of Christmas is giving, and my friend Danny McGee knows that very well. His annual toy run with the Agape Projects helps bring joy to children who need it most. But to reach this year's $80,000 goal, we need everyone's help. So grab your cocoa, hop online, and make your donation at theagapeprojects.org. Together, let's fill hearts and stockings with love.
Hey everyone, it's Rich Bennett. Can you believe it? The show is turning 10 this year. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in, shared an episode, or even joined the conversation over the years. You're the reason that this podcast has grown into what it is today. Together, we've shared laughs, tears, and moments that truly matter. So I want to thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the next 10 years even better.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Harford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch
It's probably the least sexy part of the work, and I don't know. That's okay. No. The truth is,
today's guest is someone who has spent nearly 3 decades helping people and organizations navigate some of the toughest challenges in behavioral health. Jennifer Redding is a licensed clinical social worker, an executive leader, and a nationally recognized speaker with deep expertise in trauma-informed care, mental health, and organizational leadership. She founded Harford Counseling back in 2009 to fill a real gap in support for people impacted by trauma, mental illness, and substance use, and she's continued that mission as the co-founder of Pebbles Throw Consulting, where she works with leaders and organizations across the country. Jennifer has guided major behavioral health systems, trained teams in healthcare, education, social services, and law enforcement, and served in key leadership roles right here in Harford County. Her work has earned recognition from the U.S. Army, the Athena Leadership Awards, and multiple community organizations. And I am happy to have her back for, I believe, the 4th time on Conversations with Rich Bennett. I have Jennifer Redding here, who has her own business called Harford Counseling. And we're going to talk about her business, of course, and the importance of it, because I still think, and Jennifer, jump in at any time, but I still believe when it comes to mental health, a lot of people are still afraid to talk about it.
100%. I think we're getting better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
absolutely.
the stigma of mental illness and just in general, anything related to mental health, substance use is just so taboo. And folks really struggle with, number one, talking about it, acknowledging it, and then obviously reaching out when they or someone in their family needs support.
Why do you think that is?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think there has always been sort of this thought process that, if you have any sort of emotional dysregulation or, a mental illness such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, that's more of a character flaw versus something that is very similar to a chronic disease like diabetes or COPD or something along those lines. There's a huge disconnect. Part of my passion, though, is to sort of confront that thought process and, help to emphasize that mental health is just as important as physical health. And it's not one or the other. It's you're one person and you have both mental and physical health that we need to take care of.
Do you think that a lot of people, because they don't want to talk about it or even seek help from somebody like you, do you think they're trying to take care of them, like self-help?
I mean, I think, so that's a big question. I think, as obviously as a female and as a mom and as
Mhm.
a someone that's always worked, I think as moms we tend to want to take care of our kids
Right.
and those around us first, and so sometimes and most of the time there's not a whole lot left for
Yeah.
us. But I think also, whereas like if you, for example, if you were to break your leg or break your arm or, have a major physical illness, like you wouldn't think twice to go seek help at
Right.
the doctor. But for folks that are suffering, with anxiety or depression, maybe it's hard to get out of bed in the morning,
Yeah.
and it's not just the one off, it's weeks and weeks and weeks. We feel like, and society sort of emphasizes that we just need to suck it up, come on, push through it. And there are hard days. We all
Yeah.
have those, but that's very different than a clinical depression or a clinical anxiety. And so that's where it sort of crosses over. I think the challenge is that the line is so blurry when it
Mhm.
comes to mental health and mental illness, as far as where you draw the line and seek help and support. Whereas, with a physical health issue, I think the line is much more clear. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm experiencing these symptoms. I need to go to the doctor to get medicine or to talk and figure out what the options are. Mental health, it's a bit different.
And that's something I don't understand. And I'm seeing a lot of people, and I'm saying this because I'm thinking of my son and my daughter's generation, just talking to their friends and even people around. It seems like a lot of people are self-diagnosing themselves as well.
Yeah, I think that's the blessing and the curse of the internet and
Well,
social media.
yes, but
Um,
it's almost like
yeah.
this is something I don't understand. And we talked about this on another episode. But like when it comes to depression, anxiety, it seems like a lot of kids are wearing that like a badge of honor. And I
Mhm.
don't understand why.
I mean, I think, again, I look at it in a couple of ways. I am happy that there's conversation
Well, yeah.
and there's vocabulary and folks are talking about it. I think that's a plus.
Right.
I do think there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Absolutely.
And like you've described it, I don't know that I necessarily call it a badge of honor or badge, but I do think there has been I don't know what I would call it. There have been some things or movements out there
Mhm.
where it's cool,
Yes,
to
that's what I
be
mean. Yeah.
bipolar, and I hate to say it this way, but to name yourself as bipolar or some
Yeah.
other illness, because in my world, when I think about that, you're not bipolar. You are someone that is experiencing symptoms, and maybe they
Right.
fall in into that category or that diagnosis, but that's not who you are. And I
Mhm.
think social media sometimes, has really sort of, made that become your identity. And I think that's a slippery slope.
Oh, what,
Um,
social media?
no, the any sort of illness or label becoming who you
Oh,
are,
yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
identity.
Yeah.
And so I always sort of like to kind of counter that thinking because it's a component of who you are. It's not who you are.
Right. Yeah, I thought you meant the social
Yeah, wow,
because
that's a whole nother podcast.
well, we've even talked about that, about the addiction,
Yeah,
how bad it is,
yeah.
and I was talking to my neighbor the other day, and I love this. He said, one of the things they do at their house, and I'm surprised that people still do this. As soon as the kids like get home from school and everything,
Mhm.
and they get home from work, all the phones go into a basket,
Interesting.
and
Yeah,
they don't use them while they're in the
yeah,
house. It's like, I love that.
yeah.
I know if I would try to do that, I'd probably get stuff thrown at me
For
from my
real.
wife and my
Yeah.
daughter. So-
Well, and depending on your job, sometimes you don't even have that option or that
Well, that's true.
privilege.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting. Obviously we're of the age where we have perspective because we remember what it was like not to have
Mhm.
the internet and social media. And so, I think about my kids, they don't have that perspective. They've all, they were born and it was always, a common tool to use.
They were,
And so,
yeah.
not having that perspective can be really challenging, I think.
Yeah, I guess when you're born into the digital age, it's, I mean, unless you live off the grid,
Right.
you need it.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, even a lot of your jobs now, they require you to use an app on the
Mhm.
phone to check in.
More than one.
Even
Yeah.
doctors.
Yeah.
oh, yeah, you check in ahead of time.
Right.
Huh? I could do that?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And, well, we know what happens with some of the apps when some services go down. And you
Correct.
use
Right.
them. All right. So, Harford Counseling, how long ago did you start this?
We opened our doors in 2009.
I didn't
So
realize it's been that
it's
long.
been a while.
All right. Why?
Really out of frustration. I had been a working professional here in Harford County for many years,
Mhm.
and my passion has always been working with folks who have been impacted by trauma,
Right.
but also who then, have resorted to substance use to help survive and cope with
Yeah.
trauma and mental illness. And so working within the community, really trying to work with the existing providers at that time to treat the whole person. What was happening back in 2009 is that you had mental health providers, you had substance use treatment providers, but you didn't really have a whole lot of folks who were really coming at it as this person is one person who
Right.
maybe has been impacted by a number of things and a number of events, and we need to treat that person, completely. Back then, and it's not that long ago, but it really was the way of life. Is that the thought was if someone had a substance use issue, had been impacted by trauma such as childhood sexual abuse or physical abuse or domestic violence, you had to cure, and I use quotation marks, the substance use first before you could dive into that trauma. And obviously that sounds silly today because we recognize that person is most likely using substances to
Right.
numb their brain so that they don't think about the ramifications of that
Mhm.
experience. And so, way back then, we really hit it head on. And so out of frustration of trying to get partners to figure it out, I created the practice so that we could do it right, and we
Yeah.
could really impact change and serve folks in the way that I felt like they deserved and needed to be treated.
Now, are you brick and mortar or do you work out of home?
No, we have an office
Oh.
in Bel Air. And it's the office where we opened in 2009, right on the corner of 543 and 22. um, but yeah, so we have an office. We have 6 therapists at this time that are working for us. Obviously, after COVID, we got a quick study on telehealth.
Right.
And so we can offer telehealth if our clients feel like that's a better fit for them, but we also definitely prioritize the face-to-face.
All right. I'm glad you brought up telehealth. And I didn't know this until I forget. It was a while ago. I had a therapist on, and I didn't realize that you can only practice in the state
Mhm.
that you're in. Do you think that will ever change, especially now with telehealth and Zoom and everything else? Do you ever think or even wish that that would change to where you can help people anywhere?
There are some things in motion. So the
Oh.
way the regulations read is that you have to be the clinician, the therapist has to be licensed in the state where that client is currently. So say, the common example is when we're working with kids who are going away to college. So
Right.
maybe, they were in high school when we started seeing them, but then they go out of state to college.
Mhm.
And so there are some exceptions at this point for that.
Okay.
But say you're just starting new with a client and they live in a different state and that therapist is not licensed. That's where the regulation says you can't serve them. But after COVID, again, it really opened up a lot of awareness on some of the challenges with that.
Right.
There, certainly back in COVID times, there was a shortage of therapists,
Mhm.
that were really getting it right. And so it's taken, here we are in 2025, it's taken the legislators, some time to kind of figure things out. But there is a compact, I don't know how to describe it, but there's a compact legislation initiative where essentially if you're licensed in one state, you can be licensed in all of the 50 states.
It should
And
be
so
that way.
each state has to sign on. And so it's
Yeah.
been a slow process. And so bit by bit, each state is coming on board.
Okay.
But I think that's definitely going to help
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
the access to care. And, it's still a work in motion, but I think we're going to get there shortly.
It needs to happen because you
Yeah.
think about it. How many times have you've been helping somebody and they move out of state and you can't
Right.
help them anymore.
Mhm.
And the thing is, if a lot of people just love their therapist, they don't want to
Mhm.
go to somebody else.
Yeah.
And if they move out of state, it's like, I think it could drive, like, especially if they're going through depression, could drive it right
Mhm.
back down
Mhm.
again.
I mean, if you think about therapy, I mean, it's an investment. You're sharing your story,
Yeah.
its vulnerability, and once you do connect with a therapist, it's really hard to think about having to step away when you're not ready. I think way back, the mindset of the law though was you imagine someone's in another state and they go into crisis, maybe you're not going to know the resources and you're not going to be able to get them help. Whereas if they're in your, jurisdiction, perhaps you'd be more aware. But I think at this stage in the game with the way, the internet and social media, I think therapists are much more aware. And if they're not, it's pretty easy to find resources.
Mhm.
And I think, again, the pandemic really opened our eyes to access, not just access to therapists. And this is a point I like to emphasize. There are a lot of therapists,
Right.
but the quality of therapists is where I think it gets really questionable.
Mhm.
And, not to point fingers, at folks. We're all responsible for educating ourselves, in the field. But some therapists are not as good as others. And so I think the beauty of this legislation is it really will help to increase good quality access to
Good.
therapists. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing too, with what you said about how you may not have the resources from another state.
Right.
I also think that if legislation does pass for this, it's you're going to see therapists throughout the country networking together,
Mm-hmm.
which that would be a big help. Because, I mean, you think about it, when you network, you're networking locally.
Sure.
But when you can do that throughout the country,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next step would be worldwide because
Yeah.
people do
Yeah.
move out
That's
of
true.
country too.
That's true.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it seems like Portugal is getting a lot of people for
Oh
some.
my. Yeah.
I think I've talked to 5 different people
Hmm.
that have moved to either Portugal and one to Spain.
Interesting.
It's like
I wonder what that's about.
very beautiful
Yeah.
from
True.
what I've heard.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how the food is, but I'd be willing to go
I'll
there
leave
and
that
try
to
it.
you, Rich.
Hey, I would be more than happy to go and try it. All right, so Harford Counseling, what
Uh-huh.
services do you guys offer?
So we offer the traditional behavioral health services. So any sort of counseling that, one might need, individual, group, family, therapy. Our specialty is really that providing trauma-informed care. So not just, for folks that have been impacted by,
Right.
by trauma, and trauma really is defined by that person. So, we call it, there's 2 sort of descriptions. There's big T trauma, which is like what I think most people think about, with child abuse,
Right.
sexual assault, domestic violence. But there's also little T trauma. So divorce, if you're a child of parents who divorce, or if you're, going through a divorce yourself, that's still very traumatic. Your life is changing. And so really, that's one example. But it's really up to that individual to define whether an event is traumatic, if
Right.
it's really causing them to feel outside of, out of control and like their life is sort of imploding. And so at Harford Counseling, we really specialize in that piece of things. But we work with folks that have any sort of, assortment of challenges, such as depression, anxiety,
Right.
just life adjustment. Life is hard. And, I think one benefit of social media and as we continue to combat the stigma is more people are recognizing that perhaps, it would be helpful to talk to someone that's not
Yeah.
in their circle, not in their family. And so that, we're seeing that. So that's one piece. That's sort of how we started.
Right.
Where we've sort of evolved is in addition to doing that traditional counseling, we're really branching off into working with organizations. And so, we talk about trauma-informed care, in the therapy room, but there really is trauma-informed leadership. So,
Ooh.
the very folks who have been impacted by trauma are working for you.
Yeah.
And, that sometimes impacts their productivity and, their ability to be innovative in their thought process. And so there are very simple sorts of perspectives that as leaders we can put in organizations that will ensure that their team members feel supported and psychologically safe.
That's good.
And, really then subsequently can do the work that they've been hired to do.
Right.
And so, ironically, we're just launching a new sort of arm under Harford Counseling, and it's called concierge behavioral health. And so the way I like to describe it is it's like the new frontier of employee assistance. Most organizations have EAPs, employee assistance
Right.
programs. If one of their team members needs some counseling or support, this is that on steroids, basically. So it's really providing that support for individual team members, but it's also giving managers and leaders access to that leadership consultation. How do you handle some of your challenging team members? How do you just in general manage conflict and de-escalation when there is a disagreement? It's also infusing sort of wellness trainings, as a whole. Again, as humans, we thrive on connection. Life is hard. How can we as a whole sort of just ensure that we're paying attention?
Yeah.
And so there's all sorts of things that we're offering to different organizations.
I love
Sort
that.
of like a package deal to just, kind of tackle not only team member support, but organizational support.
That's great. And that's something that's definitely needed.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think so too.
Oh, well, how many times do people go to work and they bring their frustrations
Sure.
home,
Yeah.
or better, or even
Or
worse
bring
yet,
them to work.
or right, bring
Mhm.
them to work, and unfortunately, you see some bad things happen at work, whether it be
Yeah.
fights or even worse
True.
than that,
Mm-hmm.
and something like this. Because let's face it, a lot of these workplaces are very stressful, and even bullying and everything still
Right.
goes on there.
Right.
You're listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. We'll be right back.
Hey, everyone. I want to tell you about something truly special. Harford County Living. This isn't just another website. It's a hub for all the positive news and incredible stories right here in our community. Every week, we feature a standout artist, a thriving business, a dedicated nonprofit, and a delicious restaurant of the week. It's all about shining a light on the great things happening around us. From heartwarming local news to must-attend events, we've got it all. So check out HarfordCountyLiving.com and join us in celebrating the best of Harford County. Keep it local, keep it positive. And you're getting ready to launch this?
We are launching it now, so
Wow,
it is in
that's great.
motion. And so really want to get the word out about that.
Yeah.
It's a different way of thinking. I know that I've heard from some business owners, well, we're not social workers. We're not really interested in sort of that perspective. But on the flip side of it, like I don't expect, business leaders to be social workers or counselors. But when you think about your team and you think about what your business is, obviously you want the employees that you have to be as productive as they can. You want them to be creative and solving problems and, innovating. And so what we're talking about allows that employee to really function at their highest level. If you can help mitigate some of the other, I call it noise, and help them truly feel seen, heard, valued as an employee, they're going to function and thrive in a much different way than if they're sort of fighting for survival, if you will, at their job every day.
And I guarantee you, if organizations, implement this and use you, they're going to see that they keep employees longer.
Yep.
People are going to want to apply to work there.
Mm-hmm.
Because, let's face it, you, and I hate to say this, but if you're talking to the higher ups and they're giving you like the cold shoulder or they don't care, they're out of touch with their employees.
The research says that 2/3 of your workforce have been impacted by some sort of traumatic event in the course of their lifetime. And so when you think about what research is saying, that has impacts.
Yeah.
And so from I understand what it's like to run a business. I've worked in a number of settings where, I've been responsible for hiring and recruitment. You think about the costs that go into having to recruit a new team member, train them, get them where they are self-sufficient and performing. I mean, we're talking, a ton of time that's lost with true productivity there. So if you can build a work setting where folks don't want to leave, they do feel like they are cared for and they're able to do what they do in the best way possible and they're supported, they're not going to leave. And so it's that in and of itself is a cost savings, So it's an investment. I mean, but it's definitely there are many more savings than what it costs to actually invest in the support services.
All right, here's something something crazy because what is something that all organizations, businesses have to, I guess, go through? OSHA.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, we all have regulation bodies,
right.
So depending on what industry you're in, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think with what you're offering, I think that should be mandatory.
I definitely think it's going to be the wave of the future. When what we're learning about human behavior and, the sense of community. I mean, first and foremost, no matter what, as humans, we are bound and driven by the sense of connection. Again, I keep mentioning the pandemic, but it was such an amazing case study on human behavior.
Yeah.
And so many folks that were able to, kind of say, not in my backyard, that's not my problem, recognize because they experienced it themselves, the sense of isolation and loneliness. And so it really hit home the importance of that sense of connection. And that so comes into play, when we think about, the majority of us work and we're out of our homes or, at least if we're not out of our homes, we're working from home, but we're working the greater part of our waking hours. And so that sense of connection, that sense of, need to be doing something that's going to take care of ourselves and our families is so important. And so I think for leaders, if we don't pay attention to the humans that are working for us, I think that there are I said earlier, it's a win-win. If you're not going to pay attention to that and think that that's not your problem or not important, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just going to lose. And I think leaders are getting smarter, even those not in, the world of behavioral health. I'm talking traditional sort of business and industries. I think leaders are recognizing that they have to really sort of tap in. Psychological safety is a buzzword that has been around forever. And it honestly makes me twitch sometimes because it's so misunderstood.
Yeah.
But it really is about creating an environment where folks really do feel that it is safe to be who they are. And that's not saying that there's not accountability,
right.
But it's truly creating that environment where you are seen for who you are valued for your opinion. And, you're not going to be penalized for raising your hand saying, I don't understand or I don't agree,
I know an organization where you guys need to be right away.
Is that right?
Yeah, the school system.
Yeah.
And here's why, because all right, when people think, well, and I'm not talking about going into the school system for the kids. Think about everything that the teachers go through.
Sure.
The stuff they see with having to deal with the kids, how their hands are tied because there's things they can't do. You hear about teachers all the time that are going through anxiety, that are going through depression, and I hate to say it, even commit suicide. They need the help.
Sure.
Yeah, your company.
Rich, will you be my PR manager? Please.
But think about it, because a lot of people, they don't think about the teachers, how they need the help.
Yeah, it's definitely a stressful profession for sure. The challenges that they face on a daily basis.
And the other thing is, you look at all the warehouses that are going in here, all the big companies like Amazon. What's the other one? Saks?
I think so. Yeah, Saks Fifth Avenue.
Well, even Pepsi and all that.
Kohl's.
And Lay's. Is it Lay's or Frito-Lay's?
I think it's
Whatever.
Frito-Lay. Yeah.
But I mean, these organizations definitely need it. And they would keep their, I think, what's the word for it? Not customer. You know what I mean? The retention.
Yeah, the staff retention.
Yes.
So again, having worked for a number of organizations, that's one of the largest costs, the staff turnover.
Yeah.
And then having to recruit, that's a fee of itself. It's time, it's commitment. Sometimes you outsource recruitment, and then onboarding them, the amount of time it takes to train them. That's such a huge loss to productivity when you're operating a business. And if you could create an environment where folks not only didn't want to leave, but they're begging to work for you. Like, imagine what that would be like, and it's not brain surgery.
No.
I'm not talking about like these really expensive interventions or strategy or time consuming strategies. Like, it's really not a heavy lift, but it's about being intentional. It's about being consistent. And it really does make a difference. The science is speaking to it.
And you'll see businesses will spend money for motivational speakers to come in because what do they want to do? They want to drive up morale.
Or consultants. That's my favorite right now. And I am a consultant, but I can't tell you how many organizations I've worked for that have brought in consultants, and they don't tell you, and they might tell you what you already know, but they're not giving you specific strategies that are realistic. Maybe it's like this huge new program or this huge new initiative that you're in the weeds already trying to do your day-to-day work, and now you're supposed to initiate this whole big new thing. And that's not what we're talking about with Harford Counseling. These are our simple strategies that are it's not a new program, it's a way of life.
Right.
And so certainly it's helpful at work, but it's also helpful, for leaders in their personal lives. It's about being human, with intention is how I'd like to describe it.
Organizations need this.
Yeah.
They need it. They need the contact.
That's why we created it. I mean, I kept hearing from, colleagues and other professionals, in our county and in our community. And, they didn't quite have the vocabulary behind it, but this is truly what they've been asking for and what they've been expressing through their frustrations with sort of why they need it, because of folks not being able to get the job done, not, the frequent turnover, the frequent escalation, in between team members, and so as leaders, I don't know if you've ever heard the 80-20 rule, you spend 80% of your time with 20% of your team who are struggling or acting out or just not performing. This sort of levels that playing field. So you're not having to spend so much time on those folks that aren't getting it done.
I think also if they put this in, it's people are going to want to go to work,
right? Because
work is fun. They're excited to go to work.
I don't know. I mean, I would hope that folks would think that work is fun. I don't know that I would say that that's what this program is going to do for the workforce, but I think it will help folks feel like they are making a difference in in whatever, like, and I'm not saying, you can work at Wawa and make a difference, in your customer's day by having a smile on your face and welcoming them. But I think it will help team members feel like they are important and they are valued and they're good at what they're doing and, that they're thriving, even if it is just a part-time job, as a high school student to pay the bills. I mean, it's again, whatever kind of a job it is, it's helping that person in that moment in time feel valued.
Yeah, which is important.
Yep.
I mean, you definitely need that. What other, is there any other surprises you have for me that you guys are launching?
I don't think any surprises. I think it's just, we are committed with Harford Counseling. I always say it, we want to be part of the solution in our county. My mission in life is to provide a voice for folks who don't have a voice, specifically with those who have mental illness, who have been impacted by trauma. And so creating programs and partnerships, where we can help do that. So that, I don't know that that's a surprise, but that's sort of our driving force, and we will continue to push forward.
All right. So I always like to ask my guests this, and you don't have to use a name, but can you share a feel-good story with us of somebody that you were able to help? And again, you don't need to use their name.
Yeah.
You can say their name is Rich.
I don't know that I'm terrible on the spot, but I think it's a combination of stories, honestly. And
Yeah.
so when I think about some of the folks that we have served, and that's how I like to describe it, it's a privilege to be on the journey. And so
I like
again,
that.
my passion is working with folks who have been through trauma, and to hear some of the stories, I can't even put words to it, but to be along on the journey to
Mhm.
helping them kind of recognize that it's not who they are, it's something that happened to them,
Yeah.
and to sort of find direction and to find hope. And it's really, we sort of have a tagline with Harford Counseling about inspiring resilience. And so to be able to inspire resilience, regardless of all of the things that, you've experienced in
Mhm.
life that no one should experience, but the fact that you have the courage to kind of show up, get out of bed, and really try to put it together. And again, as a therapist, I don't have all of the answers, but
Nobody
I'm
does.
along for the journey, and together helping that individual sort of
Yeah.
rise. That is what's so powerful.
Well, and when you're sitting there helping that individual, when you're sitting there talking and they start to open
Yeah,
up, it's just gonna help them more. I think it also helps you as well.
absolutely.
Because let's face it, as a therapist, you are healing. You're hearing a lot of the negative things coming from
Sure.
people, and it's got to be an effect on you as well. But I think when you're talking to them in a way, it helps.
Yeah. I think,
Mhm.
doing some of the trauma work that we've done at the practice, sometimes we're meeting people in the worst moments of their
Yeah.
lives, and they're coming to us with such vulnerability and such courage and
Mhm.
just, not sure what direction to go. And so obviously that's a heavy weight,
Yeah. Oh,
as a
yeah.
therapist, but, to stick with them on that journey and to see sort of the light bulbs come on as they're starting to kind of build out of and dig out of that hole, if you
Mhm.
will, and you start to see the light come on behind their eyes,
Makes you feel
and
good.
I mean, it gives me chills today when I think
Yeah.
about it. I mean, it is such a privilege, and it's hard sometimes,
Yeah.
but it's one that I can't imagine doing anything different. I feel
Mm.
so privileged. I keep saying it, but like it really is. Um, it's incredible to be on that journey with
Oh,
folks.
yeah. When's the book coming out?
I'll let you know.
All right, something very important. Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you guys.
Sure. I think the easiest way is just the website, and it's pretty simple. It's harfordcounseling.com.
That's too easy.
I know.
All right, those of you listening, Harford, don't put a T in there.
Yes.
Definitely don't put a T in there. We're not in Connecticut.
Yeah.
This is Maryland.
Yep. harfordcounseling.com. All of the information is there, how to reach out. Even if you just have questions and you're not
Yeah.
sure what you want or need, we can certainly guide you.
All right, so before I get to my last question, and I have no idea what it's going to be, is there anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I appreciate, obviously, Rich, you are doing such an amazing job with this
Oh, well, thank
podcast and
you.
just raising awareness across the county on all the different businesses and programs and special people that we have living here in the
We got a
county.
lot of special people.
And so I appreciate you really continuing to get information in front of people.
Thank you. I wish that a lot of people would take advantage of this.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
all right, let me ask you something.
Okay.
How much did I charge you to come on?
Oh, I'm not supposed to talk about
Oh,
that.
oh,
Nothing.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
and the thing is, I mean, doing this for 10 years,
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, get on, not just
It's a great
on mine, but
opportunity.
get on podcasts in general
Right.
because you need to grow your business.
Yeah.
You need to sell your book. You need to tell your story.
Right.
I mean, oh, God. I keep saying
I
that
think
till
the
I'm
other
blue in-
thing, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think the other thing that I have found about podcasts, and depending on where your station in life is,
Mhm.
some people don't have the ability or don't feel comfortable connecting live with other individuals. And podcasts,
True.
such as this, where it really genuinely is a conversation, really helps folks feel connected, in some way. So I think that's also a benefit, and I hope that you keep doing
Oh.
it for years and years and
Oh,
years to come.
I don't plan on stopping.
Good.
I was told I can't stop anyways. Actually, have you been on Tim Marklin's yet?
No, I haven't.
All right, Tim, if you're listening, you need to get Jennifer. So Tim is local too. His podcast is the TMA Connection.
Okay.
And he talked, same as me when I first started, talking to a lot of people in Harford County. You definitely need to get on his. In all honesty, when it comes to, I don't know of any other podcasts besides me and him that are local where you could talk. Now, I know there's a ton out there globally, which still helps spread the word. But in order to do that, you need to either travel to them out of state or have the setup at home.
Right.
All right. So pick a number between 1 and 100.
5.
Oh, that was too simple.
That's always my favorite number.
Why?
I don't know. It just always has been.
Okay. This is a good question. If you knew you couldn't fail, what's the one thing you would attempt?
It's what I'm doing right now. I am literally, and it's too much information to go into the details right now, but literally this week, taking the proverbial dive off the cliff and just investing in myself and believing in myself. And I'm going to get it done.
You've never done that?
Not to this extreme with so much to risk.
Right.
Yep.
Well, you'll be successful at it.
Thank you.
I know you will.
I believe it.
Jennifer, I want to thank you so much. It's always great to see you. And, I told you before, that the door is always
Thank
open.
you.
You can come back anytime. We need to do another round.
I've always felt comfortable, and you've always put me at ease in these conversations. So I definitely thank you.
Yeah, we definitely got to do another round.
Yeah,
too.
I'd love it.
Who else can we get on?
We'll talk. I have some ideas.
Oh, you do?
Maybe.
Oh, okay. That works for me. Thank you for listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something from it as I did. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and share more incredible stories. Don't forget to connect with us on social media or visit our website at conversationswithrichbennett.com for updates, giveaways, and more. Until next time, take care, be kind, and keep the conversations going. It takes a lot to put a podcast together, and my sponsors help out a lot, but I also have some supporters that actually help me when it comes to the editing software, the hosting, and so forth. There's a lot that goes into putting this together. So I want to thank them. And if you can, please visit their websites, visit their businesses, support them however you can. So please visit the following. Full Circle Boards. Nobody does charcuterie like Full Circle Boards. Visit them at fullcircleboards.com. Sincerely Sawyer Photography. Live in the moment. They'll capture it. Visit them at sincerelysawyer.com. The Joppatown Lions Club, serving the community since 1965. Visit them at joppatownlionsclub.org. And don't forget the E at the end of Joppatown, because they're extraordinary.
The Harford County Health Department can help eligible pregnant women and children with low to average incomes get free health insurance through the Maryland Children's Health Program. Call 410-877-1040. That's 410-877-1040.